This is our third segment of our theories and strategies. The first one we were doing soft circular redirecting techniques. The second one we're doing linear reflecting slide techniques. Here we're doing fast snappy techniques. And the difference is if he was coming to punch me and I redirect his energy, was the first one, he comes to punch me and I slide through reflecting his energy. And this one, I'm loose, so when he comes to punch, I'm coming with fast, snappy punches. I'll show it in slow motion. When he came to punch, I went 1 to the bone, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each time I'm crossing. If for example, if I went 1, 2, 3, and I left that hand open, 4, and I still left that hand open, I'm going to get an elbow to my face. What I'm doing, and it's important that you can understand, is when he comes to punch, what I'm doing, and what he's doing is, it's kind of funny. What's funny is I see other people demonstrating martial arts and their ukis come to throw a punch and they're standing there wide open and their instructor's dancing around and hit them with all sorts of hits and they're not covering themselves. And I'm thinking, who actually punches knowing that they're going to get hit and stands like this? So it's in this situation, he's coached because he knows what's going to happen, but we're trying to slow that down a bit. When he comes to punch and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'm ready. If this punch should come at me, I'm coming to do this on this side. If when he comes to punch and I go, I'm covering up, and even if he was in a position where he's not, we'll get him not to crouch like he's in an attack mode. So when I go to do this, it's always in a position where I'm getting my strikes off. The theories and strategies that I'm trying to teach through this session are loose, snappy, high-intensity, explosive strikes. The theory, like before, we were actually hitting with our full body, with the power of our whole body as one unit. They're sort of fall into what we call an earth technique, high-resistance striking techniques. To develop this motion of high-intensity snaps, you have to put it in your mind almost like a whip. If you follow a bullwhip, it's all loose, it flows out, and at the last second, it snaps. At that snap, that intensity rushes through, exploding at the end of the whip. So if you want to develop these techniques, you have to make your body really loose. You have to have loose in the shoulders, loose in the hips, loose in the arms. And when you toss them out, it's not tossing it out with this type of power, like somebody who's grabbing a weight and throwing it through the air. You're just loose, snapping it out, almost like swatting a fly. So if you're loose and you're tossing this out, and at the last second you tighten up, that's what gives you that snap. Whether you're coming for an inside shudo, a reverse fist, it's being completely loose and then full intensity. So it's very dangerous if you hit people with this full intensity, because it's the difference between getting hit with a softball and a hard ball. What I mean is, if somebody has a lot of strength and resistance in their body all the time, you cannot maintain that strength and resistance. In this situation, you're completely loose. There's one fraction of a second that you can have full intensity, but you're only going to get that intensity from being totally loose. So when we do these techniques, or when you're wanting to practice these techniques, and you don't want to practice on your partner by hitting them with these type of snapping, explosive techniques, you have to practice on a bag. So everything that we do, or everything that you're going to do, you will practice on a bag. So when you're practicing on the bag, try to break it down again. So you're coming, the 2 strikes through the arm first. It's like, you're coming with a back snap to here. And then you go. So you got 2 to the arm, 2 to the head, 4. And when you go from there, you go 5, keeping that arm as a guard. So you keep practicing that yourself and you'll develop the technique. And it won't be hitting with your hands open like you see in a video. We do that because we want to not hurt our opponents. So there's some people who are trying to learn from videos, and there's some people who are watching videos to try to discredit them, or you know, they look at it and go, oh, you can't really hit somebody with your open hand, or that wouldn't hurt. There's always people that are saying, well, in the real world it wouldn't work that way. I wouldn't stand like that. I wouldn't move this way. What we have is, in a real world, things happen and change, and we adjust to those changes. So if somebody says, well, if you're going to do this, they preempt it in their head that they're going to get a defense for it before you go to do it. But they really don't know what you're going to do in the real world. They only know what they're going to do if you're demonstrating a technique that is sort of like a static technique that they can make a defense for and try to preempt you. It's like somebody coming to punch you and already covering their head because they know you're going to punch them in the head because you've just done it 5 times. So sometimes people watch videos for different reasons. If you are watching to learn and you want to practice this and you want to get that, it's like you have that snap. Every snap that you have is like 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to be loose, get your snap, and every time you snap, you have to be completely loose so that you can snap again. Otherwise, you won't have that quality in your contact of your opponent. When he comes to punch, that snap hit his ulna. He's gonna get a big bubble here if I hit him like that on that bone. But he's getting hit twice. 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7 if I want to. But the strikes are all, before we were hitting with our whole body. These strikes are fast, like repetitious strikes that are working on points, or hitting the sternum, or hitting the cheekbone, or I'm hitting the ulna or the radius. I'm hitting points with specific explosive snap techniques. From the other side, as he comes to punch, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm guarding the possibility. If I wasn't here, and I won't guard, when I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if I'm not guarding that arm, I'm probably going to be eating his elbow. So you got to understand it, and then you got to get really loose. So when he comes to punch, you're coming with your strikes that are in slow motion again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guarding that possibility. I can continue with my strikes coming in and out if I want to. It's all part of that energy of fast, snappy techniques. So using these snap techniques, you have to realize you have to keep yourself very loose. You can't get snap from any tension. And you also have to be aware of why you're doing this. So if somebody's a big person and his hands are up, and I don't want to come and hit him, or I don't want to trade off with him, and I don't want to, I'm worried that he's going to hit me, so I may just come to snap and hit. And anytime I snap, even if I'm going loose, it's because I'm not wanting to crack him in his ulna. If in this position here, when he comes to punch, you're snapping 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we're going to do, and when we pick it up, it's like, as long as your techniques are, I'll put it slow motion. 1, before the last technique that we started with like a back fist. We started a back fist, and we're always moving out. So when the punch comes, we're trying to hide away from the punch. So we're snapping it, snapping it, snapping it, snapping it. That's what we started. So we started with this back fist. On this technique, we're coming across in this position here, striking him with the middle knuckle into his ulna. And it's not hard, it's that snap. So when you're snapping him from here, 1, I snap, hit, hit, hit. So as long as, when you're here and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you got your strikes in there, and then you don't really want to even stand at the last part. And snap in and snap out. from the other side, as this punch comes, again, I'm starting with this strike. The first techniques that we did, we started like a back fist. And if I'm loose, it's just a snap. So here comes the punch, it's a snap. Just a snap, but I'm going to crack it. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As long as if you're loose, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can come off with your strike. So really what you're doing is when you're coming you're coming for the cheekbone here or to the temple. You can keep doing your strikes as long as you're covering this hand from hitting you or this hand from coming at you, because he may turn in to hit you with this side. And if he does, then you have to snap it again. And if you're loose, you don't have to have big movement, just that snap sound. If you snap this, and when he comes and you snap him this, again, you're going to continue your techniques. But for demonstration purpose, I'm standing still. Really, you should be snapping in and snapping out. Okay, now from our third one, what we're going to do is when he came to punch, I snap, but I'm going to come to the ribs first and then over top. So in slow motion, it's snap here, snap to the ribs, snap to the head. And again, if you want to hit this way out or hit this way out, depending on the size of your opponent, that's all fine. So when he comes, you're coming with your strikes and they're always snapping, hitting bone. If his punch is straight, we can get around it. So we can get around it snapping here, or we can get around it slapping here for straight. But if his punch is coming from here, whether it's like this or whether it's full rounded, when he comes to punch, I can't get to the outside of this hand. So the first technique that we're going to practice now is a trampoline technique, and it goes like this. When he comes to punch, you bounce. You bounce off, and it's kind of a nasty strike if you do it properly. But in slow motion, when he comes to punch, and I see this coming, I'm not blocking with this, I'm turning in and hitting. But this hit bounces, so I think that I'm going to bounce off his arm. If you have the energy where you're hitting somebody, it's different than if you think that you're bouncing. If you bounce off the brachioradialis here, and you'll come up to a back fist to his temple, and then we're going to follow up, and it'll have a 3 count. So when he comes to punch, you can hear the cadence here. He comes to punch. You can see it's tut-tut-tut. And I'm still trying to do it fairly slow, but realistically, these techniques are fast, snappy hits, hitting specific points. And here, as he comes, now we want to have more strikes. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're moving out. So if I wanted to, and be in this position, I'm coming in slow motion. When I'm coming to do this, and I'm coming to do these strikes, I'm actually guarding this arm and holding on to it. Now my last strike that I'm doing is I'm going to actually, I'm always covering it, and when he does it, and I'm striking, even if he wasn't covering himself, I'm striking him, but I can always guard his strike with this arm. Okay, here when he comes to punch, we're striking in and back. The first technique, remember, in slow motion, he comes, it's bounce. And then you're going bounce to hit. So it's not bounce, a bounce isn't a stop. It has to come here. So as soon as you hit here, it's going to back fist. Now I'm not closing my fist because I don't want to hurt him and give him big lumps on the side of his head and his temple. There's another spot, it's about a ½ inch above the temple, that gives you a bit more success even. So when he comes to punch, and you're coming to this point, my students know what's going on. They're already guarding what I'm doing because they've been trained. And like I said before, some people Uki's punch and their arms are down, or they don't retract their punches, or so there's certain things that I think are a bit odd, and they're bad habits that people teach to their students when they're performing. In this situation, when he comes to punch, and you're coming with your strikes, it's a whole bunch of strikes to your opponents, and covering them all, it's as he comes to punch, 1, and it comes to here. So it's one motion, it goes like this. But in between there, we have another back fist. So it comes like this. And what you're missing probably is this one. So when I bounce off here, just before this one gets here, this one hits also. But I turn my fist, so I'm only getting one knuckle right in here between these tendons. So I'll make it so that you can see, he comes to punch. This is hitting him here. Putting it together. From the other side, your first technique, as he comes to punch, you're bouncing. Don't stop like I'm stopping for demonstration purposes. I'm hitting him on his brachioradialis, and I'm coming straight to the temple with just your middle knuckle. So it's one technique and you should never be locked in. You should be light on your feet, so when he comes to punch, you're here. And breaking it down again, as I come to here, this gets in between here. Whether it hits him in this spot in between the tendons, where you collect your pulse, or the ulna or the radius, just doesn't matter depending on how he's holding his fist or what kind of strike he's striking with. He presents you the gift, you just got to utilize it. So when it comes to punch, if you're in breaking it down, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See how I got this arm? 5, it's either me controlling him or me moving away from him. It all depends on your energy at that motion. So when he comes to punch, you're in this position, always guarding yourself. Here comes the punch. Understanding these fire snap intensity strikes, they don't look like they would be very effective because lots of times I don't have them. It's not like I have to draw back my hand to punch or use my body when we're doing the hard straight techniques. And it's not like I'm using flowing movement like this. It's your hands are completely loose. And to get a snap, the easiest snap that you can get is a back fist. If you're loose, you can hear that snap. It gets a bit harder when you're not flicking your wrist, when you're just coming straight. Now, when you're loose enough, all your techniques should have that snap to them. And if what you're doing, quite often you'll see in the videos, I'm not closing my hand when I hit my student, because if I do and I make contact with, because they're usually one knuckle punches and they're hitting particular points, usually bone, they will cause a goose egg to form wherever you hit. When I see the hand movement and I'm not tightening up on my students, it's because I'm trying not to hit them. When you're practicing with your partners, you don't want to hit them like this. It's like, because it will cause him injuries. You could actually fracture his arm. So if you're in that position where you're just training, and not only that, your training partner won't last too long if you're actually hitting them. Once you hit somebody good once, they won't put their hand out in front of you anymore. So the other thing that we got to keep in mind is that when we're lowering our body and hitting with our whole body, that power is completely different than the power of these snap quick techniques. Why we have a variance of techniques or theories and strategies is because we have different applications depending on who our enemy is or who's attacking us, and what they give to us, we have to adapt to their weaknesses or their strength, however you want to look at it. So sometimes you may be a smaller person, less size and strength, so there's no way that you can defend yourself against somebody who has a hold of you or something by struggling and trying to fight them with force. So you have to develop the ability to have these snap strikes, hitting him in his metacarpals, on the radius, cheekbone, temple, nose. You want to hit specific points, and you want to be able to snap and explode on them. So make sure that when you're practicing with people to develop your techniques, you can just hit them having that snap. So in your training, make sure that you can reach far enough and close enough to hit somebody. If you're hitting, like the first one that we did, we came with a backhand to the arm, second strike, head, head, and then covering as we hit him in his ribs. So what you're doing is, you're having 5 snaps. And in doing so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You won't get a snap from an open hand. You'll have a slap hitting your opponent, and hopefully that when you're practicing, your opponent, after you do it a couple times, he will have his hand up guarding him, because he'll know what's going to happen. It's not like you come up to somebody who hasn't been training with you and just go, here, come to hit me, and hit them with those closed fists. Because if you do so, you know, they won't want to train with you anymore. So here, reviewing the first few techniques that we did using our snapping techniques, is as your opponent came to punch you, you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, covering and guarding. When you want to practice that technique to be better yourself, you'll just go like, he'll come and you'll just go 1, 2. He'll come again, 1, 2. And then you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you'll pick it up, it'll be from the other side. When he came to punch, you always move away. Because these techniques, before he came to punch, we're coming in. Or he came to punch and we're redirecting around with a circular motion. Here's one of the biggest difference in these theories and strategies is, in the snapping techniques, you're going to move away. As he comes to punch, I move away and I snap. And I snap, and then I'm moving in. I'm covering the closest point to me, coming to hit him. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See how I'm covering that hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure that you have this hand covered here. If this hand comes to punch, it's going to come back here again. You can do the same thing. Our next technique, as your opponent comes to punch, instead of starting with this back fist, you're starting like this. Straight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guarding the arm again with your arm in case you have to guard it, because if it's up, he can hit you with the elbow or get you. If it's down, he can get you. If you're here in this position when he comes to get you with the other hand, you can be in a position to continue your strikes again. You're always covering that point. So when he comes, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you pick it, let's say you start it at a cadence, so you go 1, 2, 3. And I'm not, even on 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm covering this arm and I'm covering this arm. I'm always covering what he can do, because I don't want to be here where he can punch me in my face. That's the main thing. So when you're 1, 2, 3, then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From the other side, when he comes to punch, you're always again attacking what's coming at you. And it's explosive. Even though I'm just hitting him with the back of my hand without closing my fist, I go 1, 1, 2, 3. So make sure that your opponent is covering himself so that you can't hit him. So when he comes 1, 2, 3, then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you're coming, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, you're guarding this arm. You're guarding what he can do here. Even if you were here and his hand was on this side, if he comes to punch you, you'd still have to roll around and go back into the first session of sticking and redirecting. So everything's going to go into each other as you get better. So in this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Quicker, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As long as you get your flow down and have the movements and covering your opponent's angles of attack or counter, that's the ticket here. Another one of our entries is as your opponent comes to strike you, again, you start like this instead of the back fist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Covering the hand again. Always covering the hand so that if somebody didn't know you were punching him, their hand wouldn't be there. He knows I'm punching him, so his hand is already preempted here, just in case I hit him. So if his hand was here, he could be coming to punch me, and I'd have to be in this position. So even if he came to punch me here, and I was doing fire techniques, it would be with the back of my fist. So when I come 1, 2, 3, I'm always in this position here. So you always have to be aware of what your opponent can do. Here, my opponent's hand is here because he knows preemptively that I'm going to hit him because I've done it repetitively. If his hand was here, he could come to punch me, and then I would come snapping again with my one knuckle to his arm. In this position here, when he came to punch me and I snapped again, I would continue snapping again and moving out of the way. Because you're never going to do techniques where you're hitting him and knocking him over. It's a different strategy. So the theories and strategies here are explosive. You don't have any body weight settling you down. There's no strength. It's always snap, explosive techniques, sort of like a nunchaku. A nunchaku, you could hit a heavy bag. It's not going to knock that heavy bag flying. But if it hits you in the head, it's going to split your head open. It's the same type of technique. From the other side, if he comes to punch me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Always covering here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of coming to the outside, like I did on the first few techniques that I demonstrated, we're going to move to the inside. And this motion here, it's actually a shudo chop to the brachioradialis. Now, it's not going to be a shot that goes and just hits like a strike. It's going to be a trampoline effect. It's going to be a bounce. So you're going to think that you're just going to bounce, and as you come back up, you'll hit him to the temple with your knuckle. So as he comes to punch, I'm coming in this position now. You're going to hear 3 hits here as he comes to punch. What that is in slow motion is, in between me striking him and going here, I have a back fist to the inside of his wrist. So you don't realize it, but actually this technique by itself, that bounce, is just going to injure that arm. Like that person won't even want to tighten his fist anymore. And the second one, as I come here, is striking here. At this point here, it's actually a pressure point, and you're hitting with this knuckle. So you're going to get this. It's hard to break it down because you can hear it. So there's 3 hits there. And the cadence of that is pa 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 tak tak tak. So when he comes to hit me, I'm in this position here. So it's always 1, and as you're coming for 2, because it's a bounce. Remember, it's not this hit where you're actually trying to hit. You're just trying to bounce off the arm. And the energy is completely different than a strike. It has like a dead weight that you're just trying to bounce off. And as you bounce off, it's what we call a trampolining technique. As it bounces off, you're coming to a back fist to the temple. And in between there, you're getting that snap on the inside of his wrist. And from the other side, as we're in this position and he's coming to punch, make sure that you move out of the way. And as you're moving out of the way, you're hitting this. Now, I'm going to hit him once, just to show you. It's striking right at this point here with the blade of your hand. And as it strikes, it bounces. So it's not a strike where you're knocking down. You're just trying to bounce off the arm and come with a back fist to the temple. And in between there, you're going to have this point here, this knuckle hitting here into his wrist. So here, as he comes to strike, you're striking and bouncing. So putting it together, 1, 2, 3. Putting it together. Again, as he comes to strike, you're bouncing, hitting him in the wrist, hitting him in the temple. At this point here, you're also covering, he doesn't have a strike with this hand, and he doesn't have a strike with this hand. Now, if he was hitting, if he wasn't blocking and you were actually hitting him here, you can also come, again, be in this position to do your strikes. Always crossing your opponent over, never leaving him the opportunity to counter-strike you. When he comes to strike, coming in this position here, where you look at this and say, what can I do from here? Because pretty much you're striking him, you're guarding him, you strike him on this arm, and you're guarding him here. From here you can come with your elbow and then back to the base of the skull with the blade of the hand again, a shudo chop. So when he comes to strike, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From the other side, he comes to strike, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, elbow and back of the skull. In most cases, you prefer not to strike on the inside of his arm, whether it to be in this position here or to be in this position here, because people don't usually throw one punch. It's a one mechanical motion that goes into the next. But in this position where we were before, we're always covering our arm to do this technique. Now what we're doing now, it's instead of coming one, I'm crossing myself to do this. But remember, it's not like two techniques. It's a bounce to hit. And I'm slowing it down because I can do it much faster. He can bring his hand there. So when I bounce to hit, this is a snapping hit. So on this one, instead of turning inside, we're going to do a simultaneously hit with both hands. So when he comes to punch, it's at this point here. So you're loose, he's coming to punch, and you're coming with both at the same time. And when you once you get that technique done, and then from here you got to realize that we're even again. He's got his arm up. In most cases, a lot of people punch and their arms out. You've already hit him in the head. You can then change back over and hit him. You can do different things. But in this case, since he knows what I'm doing, he's already guarding this hand, and this hand is guarded at this point. Now I've got to get out. So there's things I could do. I could come in to do throws and stuff like that, but I'm not teaching throws right now. I'm teaching theories and strategies for hand techniques. So in this position here, what I'm going to do is come again for one of these fire hits, but instead of trampolining, it's going to pass it by. So when he comes to hit me, it's here again. So it's 1, 2 simultaneously. 3, 4, 5. Putting it together. On the other side, you're striking a double strike. 1 with the back of your fist to his head, and to his arms. So when he comes, it's like 2 strikes simultaneously. Get good at it, so when he comes, it's like, and remember, in this position, if I want to hit him, he could hit me. If I leave this hand, like this hand's covered. If his hand was out here like this, if I didn't hit him, I'd have to hit away again to avoid his hand from hitting me. You always got to be aware of what the person can do who you're fighting. So in this position, when he comes to hit me and I'm in this position, I'm going to hit this out to follow my strikes up. So the technique will go like this.